fashion, I want to get in and get Jack over here to do some actual content, provide some value. And he's got a very special event coming up this Thursday. We're going to talk about it as well. But Jack, I know you work with a lot of the Simple Growth and Simple Estimate clients, far as around SEO, their website, and a few other things as well, I believe. So if people haven't met you or heard of it, if you don't mind kind of introducing yourself and kind of giving a little background of how you got into the green industry here.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Thanks for having me. My name is Jack Jostes, and I'm the CEO at Ramblin' Jackson. We are the snow and landscape marketing agency. We've been around for about 14 years, and I got my start in the green industry working at a plant nursery and garden center in the Chicago area of Illinois, where I grew up. And um, I started my marketing agency. I acquired a local SEO company. That's been one of the core focuses for me from the beginning. And we were getting a lot of great results for contractors, for landscape contractors, arborists, home remodeling, HVAC. And I got hired to speak at a green industry show around 10 years ago. And at that show, I got a ton of landscape clients, garden centers, arborists, and after a while that became 30% of our revenue, and after a couple years we decided to rebrand. So around 8 years ago we went all in on the snow and landscape industry. We've had over 300 clients around the country, and I also run the Landscapers Guide podcast, where I interview snow and landscape leaders about leadership, sales, and marketing.
Awesome. I know I've seen over the last few years the landscaper sales survey, where you dig into kind of what's going on from last year to this year, the different shifts and trends. And I know one of the big things that myself personally, I love to look at a lot of non-emotional data in the industry and where the industry is at and where they're going. Very similar to Wayne Gretzky's hockey analogy. He wanted to be where the puck's going to be and not where it actually currently is. So I know you've been really attuned to where the market's going and the different things. But really, as you're diving in, I know there's a few things that you touched on before the show that you're seeing are major differences from 2022 to 2023 and now shifting into 2024. But one of the most notable things is, what's the difference between social right now as driving traffic versus SEO in our lawn care and snow removal companies that you're
Y-
seeing based on some of the work?
yeah. So you know, a couple years ago, I realized that no one in the industry is currently benchmarking sales and marketing data for the industry. So there are a lot of great industry surveys that come out, and they usually have like one question around marketing, and it's usually like, how much are you spending, or something like that. So I wanted to take it a step further and break this out by region. What's working in the Northeast? How is that different from what's working in the Southeast? What's happening in Central, and how is that different from the West? So last year we had 165 people take the snow and landscape sales survey, and we got some really great information. And then this year we've had over 200, and I literally just got the results yesterday, and I'm finalizing my analysis of it to present on Thursday. So that's one of the fun things, is we have our landscaper summit this Thursday. It's a virtual conference, and I'm going to be doing a whole presentation on this. But one of the things that stood out to me right away was, one of the question was, we asked which marketing works best for you. And last year it was social media was the top driver of which marketing works best for you. And this year it's search engine optimization, SEO. So I'm seeing, and I've looked at this, the size of the companies, the revenue that they make is comparable. There's no major difference in like who took the survey. We just have more people, but I'm seeing that search engine optimization is a better driver of lead generation for snow and landscape companies in 2023, and I see that continuing into 2024. One of the reasons that I think that may be is that I'm seeing an overall decrease in demand for landscape services this year compared to 2020, 2021, 2022. So we're a few years. Can you believe that COVID started like 4 years ago? So it was weird, right? And that, I feel like, artificially stimulated demand for landscaping, and in some ways people were seeing landscaping on social media and responding to it. I think money was easier to borrow at that time, and a lot of people just simply bought landscaping sooner than they would And now we're kind of back into pre-pandemic where, people are searching for it when they need it, and maybe they're not as influenced by social media to buy it. That's my hunch on what's going on, but what the data, that's my interpretation of it based on kind of conversations with clients and people at trade shows. But what I'm seeing is again, last year social media was the top driver. This year SEO is the top.
Interesting, and I don't think I disagree with you by any means. We just got back from a conference, or actually two conferences, Expo and Landscape Summit, not to be confused with the Landscapers Summit that you're hosting. But Jim Houston, one of the top financial analysts or folks in the green industry, actually gave a keynote, and he actually talked and forecasted the same exact thing that you're talking about from the data that he was looking at. In addition, I literally not even planned this. I got Lawn and Landscape State of the Industry. So, like you said, great publication. I write into it more than occasionally, but not a lot of data in here around what you're talking about, Jack. So, but in here, if you did read it, you take a look at it inside the publication, they are actually forecasting very similar results based on their data. So I think that correlation between Jim Houston, who is the original gangster of finances, lives out a little bit up by you out west, and Lawn and Landscape, who had probably well over 1,000 people that responded. It's interesting that you are confirming the perspective of two other private individuals sources that industry is starting to slow down. They're seeing maintenance is starting to go up as well, but we're seeing a lot of influx as well just in the social area because a lot of these businesses are starting to become a little more educated. So they're pumping out a lot of more social content. They're pumping out paid on the social platforms. But like you said, when somebody's ready to buy, they're going into Google with the SEO and trying to find you. So totally in alignment there. So we kind of talked about the SEO versus social role there and how that's playing. But I'm assuming through there, just like Lawn and Landscape Magazine, your survey was really going in. What are these challenges going into 2024 that the lawn care, landscape, and snow removal companies?
Yeah, so one of the things that is consistent between the 2 years, but also has changed a little bit. So last year, 43% of respondents said that recruiting employees was their top challenge. So that was 43%. It's still the biggest at 37%, but what has doubled is generating the right quality leads. So last year it was 17%, now it's 33% are saying that generating leads is their biggest issue. So that's a significant increase from 17 to 33% just in a year. So I again, my sense is that the market for landscape services was overstimulated by a number of things. Largely, though, the shift to working from home for many people, a lot of, and that's impacting commercial people who are doing, class A real estate landscape management. I'm hearing those a lot of those businesses are really suffering because many people still haven't returned back to the office and they've shifted to working from home. I think that a lot of people spent more time at home than ever and invested in their yards. And my hunch is that there's less market, meaning that the people who were going to buy landscaping in 2024, 2024, 25, maybe they're going to put it off. Maybe their buying was accelerated into 2020 through 2022, and there's just fewer customers. And also there's a lot of economic challenges with inflation, with interest rates, with all different kinds of things. What do you think? I mean, what's your sense of, is the market for landscape services down? Is that what you're saying that Jim Houston was saying also, or?
Yes, as we're going, there's a couple things that I'm thinking about. It's funny you mentioned that too. So I don't even, I think I've got it at my desk here, but um, I don't not readily available. But what I was going to pull out is actually the proposal. So right during COVID, I went out and bought and was Kyle Stevens from Stonewood and Waters, national contractor that does design,
Mhm.
build designs for all over the whole United States. Kyle, luckily enough, is a local guy, but Kyle came in. I said, "Hey, Kyle, working from home, kind of got this COVID thing going on. Um, I want the front of the house cleaned up, and we've got a pool in the back. So I wanted to kind of get some things built out. But Kyle, being the salesman he is, gave me a 3D design, not only for the front of the house, the paver walkway, the softscape, replacing the fence, and like a pergola with the patio area, but in the back on the other side of the pool, he goes, "This will be phase three that I didn't ask for." He goes, "I'm going to get you the pool house. We're going to throw in the fire pit. I'll run the lines and get you a deal. And by the way, if you want to do all three phases, we'll do it." So originally, as a consumer, not necessarily an industry consultant, I had in mind of doing two phases. Kyle came in at phase three, and we had a couple good years with profit distributions in the company, so I had the money in the bank. But as a consumer, I'm like, well, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be stuck at home during this COVID thing, not knowing how long it's going to last. I'm like, I might as well enjoy it. So I will tell you, from the consumer side, I probably spent an extra 70, $80,000, probably more than that minimal,
Hmm.
up and above the original job for the same things you're talking about. So I can tell you on the contractor side, yes, I think we sold or outsold some capacity in there. Money was a lot quicker, especially with payroll protection and different things that we're going through. And then the consumer is ready to buy. But what Jim Houston was saying, and I completely agree, is the hardscaping right now, if that's what we're talking about, is probably on a decline as far as demand. In addition, that was kind of outsold the capacity, but in addition, we're seeing that people are tightening up. And I don't know if it's maybe aging myself, but in 2008, that recession we had, my lawn care company, that was the best year we ever had. But everybody that was doing design, build, and construction projects like literally dried up. So if we're rolling into another 2008 recession type thing, which a lot of people are projecting, um, the contractors right now, at least with maintenance, that are creating that cash war chest, that are going to have the ability to double down while everybody else contracts, in my opinion, is going to win. Design build, if it's similar to 2008, you're going to see those project based companies shifting hard into maintenance, and it's going to be
Hmm.
competitive, if not more, depending on who actually learns from 2008 and has that cash war chest. But that was something I learned from Jonathan Potoshnik of the Lawn Care Millionaire, co-founder of Service Autopilot. I was able to meet him prior to 2008. He said, "Mike, you never know when these black swan events come up or recession. You need to have at least 2 to 3 months worth of revenue to support the business if everything went out. But in addition, you need to be able to have a good chunk of cash to double in when everybody else contracts." And that has saved us twice now. We've had that during COVID and 2008. And in my personal opinion, there's a good chance, after talking to the industry experts in the last few weeks, that if that happens, a lot of these businesses are not ready to handle that. And curious, Jack, as you're looking at this, I know you were talking a lot
Hmm.
about construction. Do you specialize, or do you have data across both industries? Is it more maintenance, design, build? Even like as you're working with these companies, what is kind of that sweet spot that you work with, kind of this perspective as we're talking about? Definitely design build part looks good. On the flip side, have a huge upswing for maintenance companies to double down for their SEO and paid advertising.
Yeah. Well, so as far as this survey goes, um, 69% of the people offer landscape maintenance. So the vast majority are already offering maintenance. And then as far as my own clients go, it's probably about that. I have some clients who are design build only, and I have very few who are maintenance only. Most of the people I work with, I'd say, are full service, meaning they're doing some level of installation, construction, and then also maintenance. Some of them also have commercial as part of their mix. And yeah, maintenance is suddenly becoming very sexy again. Whereas, in previous years during, the COVID boom, it was all about design, build, hardscape, construction. And I think that work is still happening. I have a client who's been in business for over 30 years, and he's very good at sales, which is important here because I have some clients who are not very good at sales and they don't know. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
this guy's he's good at sales, he's good at business, he knows his numbers, and he's saying that he's still booked out. They're booked out several months. His pipeline is good, but they're as much as 50% smaller budgets than they were in the past few years. So for him, they're going from $150,000 projects to 75, or the $100,000 projects. He's now kind of back into that 50 to $70,000 range, whereas there was a good 3 year streak where it was $100,000 plus.
So very, very similar to Jason Cupp's another really big industry financial consultant. I've been talking to Jason Cupp a lot. Obviously, Jim Houston there last week. But very interesting you said that because you guys must have talked to each other, but didn't talk to each other because what they're seeing with their client base is there's a lot of guys that are really good with sales. They've kind of extended that sales pipeline into next year, but the stuff that's going into next year is not big dollar value. So like you are literally carbon copy of what I've been hearing on the street in the industry. And
Mm,
then some of those folks that really haven't figured out the sales game, that's where it gets scary because traditionally those folks are looking at really, we call that about a stage 3 business bottleneck or hurdle, but sales, you got to fix that. And whether you're doing, and I talked about that at Mike Andy's event for the summit, but literally you do a lot of sales, you do a lot of work, and there's this kind of teeter totter effect.
mhm.
That's the folks that are going to get in trouble. We really need to be able to go in and drive consistent SEO, consistent lead acquisition, and be
Right.
able to really track those marketing things that you're driving with those services you're talking about.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're hearing this from some of the other people in the industry. I've talked to Jason Cupp, but not in a while. And this is just, I run a mastermind for my top clients where people are pretty open book about what's going on and what they're seeing, and that's the trend. I am seeing it worse off in the Northeast and the Midwest than I am in Colorado and in the Southeast and in Texas. So in the Southeast, I don't know, a lot of guys are still doing great. It seems to have really slowed down in the Northeast and in the, Upper East Midwest.
Yep, and I think we service a lot of the same clients without mentioning their names. I'm seeing the same thing with the overlap. One thing in
Mhm,
upstate New York too, which is actually a telltale sign, and this is kind of how it happened in 2008 as well, is we don't usually get, at least in my area, we don't get hit as hard. We don't see the lows and the highs as much. It's kind of we see it, but it's not as
mm.
extreme. This is very similar to what happened going into 2008 in upstate New York with that. Uh, Things started to slow down. Things were still booming in the other areas. And then when it hit really hard, we felt it, but it wasn't as a big of his impact. So I guess uh, really didn't think about it till you started talking about. But if that's a telltale sign, this is really something that folks would want to dive in on Thursday with you. Understand the research, understand the data, and like how are we going to actually go out and outmaneuver our competition. And I think that was the key for me in 2008. We were aware what was going on. We had a game plan. We had a marketing plan. We had a budget. We were really particular. We are going to do offline marketing and digital marketing and go in and at that point digital marketing wasn't as popular, but really we were casting that digital net across the whole entire service area, and then we did offline marketing actually to build route density through every door direct mailing, send Jim, a couple other things, but that ability to
Well,
actually
yeah,
use.
yeah. So I'm really glad that you mentioned offline marketing because I really strongly recommend a combination of online and offline marketing. And I believe that when you're in a lower market, you're actually going to need to spend more money on marketing. So I've got bad news for you in the sense that in an up market, in a 20, like in a COVID boom market, you're kind of just like reacting to this demand and you may need to do less marketing. But when the market is a little lower, I love everyday direct mail. Postcards. You can target the zip codes where you want route density. You can give your people postcards to pass out. You may need to market more aggressively. And a key thing that I ask every client is what can your client say yes to now in this market? And has that changed from what they would say yes to 3 years ago? As an example, I had a client in Dallas, Texas, where in 2021 there was plant Mageddon. There was this freeze that literally came and killed all the plants. Texas started importing plants from Florida, and like it was just like demand up the wazoo. And we literally put stuff on his website like we can't even reply to you within a week. Because that was the truth. I'm like, "Are you sure you need a whole week?" And he's like, "I am so drowning in work." I'm like, "Well, let's tell people that." And then a year later, we needed to remove that because it doesn't take a week to reply anymore, and that demand isn't there. So there are certain levers that you can pull and adapt in your market, and one of them is the price point. What are you charging, and what are you focusing on? And maybe there was a time you were so booked out doing construction that you wouldn't want to take on fall cleanups. Maybe right now a fall cleanup sounds awesome and you want to fill your calendar with fall cleanups. Like, you know what I mean? So I think you've got to be promoting the services that your customers can say yes to now and that you're staffed for. One of the challenges I think, Mike, that the industry is facing is many people staffed up over the last few years, and now the demand is lower, and they kind of have this. I don't know. I think that's the hardest thing about running a business, honestly, is having the right number of people on your team. Is like it's like this continual balancing act of like, oh, I have too many people, I'm not making enough profit, or oh my God, we're drowning in work and people are quitting. And I'm just hearing from some people that they're feeling like they're a little overstaffed.
Yeah, and it sounds crazy right nowadays, but yeah, I think a lot of people in our ecosystem, we really got clear in the last 12 to 18 months how to actually go out, how to recruit, retain, and eventually coach up or coach out
Mhm.
the core players, the A players to core values and vision of the company, and that's something that we're actually seeing a lot with our folks as well. But I think, and I don't really know if you really dabble in this, but I think it's worth mentioning, and I don't know if the summit's going to actually tackle this, but the other biggest thing right now that I've seen, especially after Equipment Expo and Mike Andy's summit there last week, is there's a lot of folks coming in that are hungry. They want to grow. But I will tell you, probably out of 500 people at last week's event, we asked to raise a hand anybody who knew what their operating cost was to the penny, what they break even cost was versus what they're charging. The delta would be a net bottom line profit. And I'm telling you, there maybe been about 20 to 25 people out of a little over 500, which I would say normally would be alarming, but literally working with hundreds of companies a year, helping them get
Yeah.
those break evens and put them into production rate based estimating, didn't necessarily surprise me. It was still alarming that our industry has not gotten an education. So, kind of to go along with what you're talking about on the financial piece, there should be, as we're driving this with your client acquisition cost and your client lifetime value with the SEO and the online and offline marketing, we should be probably looking at some kind of industry benchmark at a bare minimum of revenue per head count. And that's going to basically kind of help you project your future staffing and where you need to be. So, like, for instance, like maintenance work, probably 80 to 85,000, probably close to 85,000 a year is going to be an industry average for a maintenance person per year to generate in revenue. So, 160 to 170,000 dollars for a two-person maintenance crew. But there's some benchmarks that we can look at as well when we're overstaffed. And obviously, we want to get rid of those people. So, how much marketing do we actually need to do? And I think Jonathan Potocnik said it the best. Great analogy. So imagine we got this vending machine, Jack, and all your perfect clients in it. We know, hey, if Ramblin' Jackson does this SEO or they do this type of campaign, we know for every $100 we're getting our ideal client. That's our client acquisition cost. For every $100 we throw in this vending machine, our perfect client kicks out. We know they stay 5 years and they're worth $15,000. That's the kind of math that we're backing into these marketing plans that I know that you provide a lot of data around that when you work with folks. And that's the thing though. Then it becomes a math game. It's not emotional. And then we can kind of project is okay, if we're going to spend this, we should have this much work and we're going to need X amount of employees for going into 2024. So the financial piece kind of runs alongside that. But I know that that's a scary thing right now in the industry because a lot of young guys and girls coming up like hungry. They've got more education they ever had on YouTube and Facebook, but we're still running a little blind to the financial impact of what we're actually doing.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And at our summit, I know this is something that you speak on and coach on and help people with. It is part of our summit. We have a whole session called Know Your Numbers, and it's all about production costs. I'm actually doing a mastermind with my clients tomorrow on production costs and estimating and estimated versus actual and getting all these numbers dialed in so you are churning a profit or figuring out what's the gap. How many more clients do I need? One challenge for me, I'll be honest, that's frustrating is many even like north of $10 million companies don't track the marketing source or I have a whole system where every lead gets into a spreadsheet. You just tell me who closed and how much they spent. It's like pulling teeth getting people to do that. So I'm with you on wanting to geek out on it, but you got to participate. You got to like have the data in order to know. So sometimes we can pass that through all the way to Aspire or different tools through the website. If it integrates with Zapier, we can automate it, but
Yep.
a lot of times there's a block and now I need a human to come in and tell me who closed. But at the Landscaper Summit on Thursday, we're going to dive into the full analysis of the sales survey. You're gonna learn, and then also some tips for addressing some of these biggest challenges, like sales process is an area where people actually lose a lot of profit. trying to sell inefficiently to many clients. We're gonna present on know your numbers. So regardless of whatever software you're using, the basics, some of the financial basics that you need to know. We have a management workshop. It's called Don't Take the Monkey, Lighten Your Load as the Leader. And this is all about coaching your employees to solve problems without you. So often they come to you with a problem and you take it. That's the monkey. This is about how to help them deal with their own monkey. We have a contest where I'm going to have three of my clients present on what's working now. One of them is talking about how they grew. Speaking of maintenance, how they got to north of 500 maintenance clients and how along the way they had to let 100 go. So this is about having the right customer. And I'm like, are you crazy? You let clients go? And they're like, yeah, they weren't profitable. And they share their numbers and how they did that. So there's a lot of really great information and including a whole session on how to increase employee retention. I think as we head into this, whatever we're heading into, or maybe we're already in it, right? Some of these things like, how do you know when you're in a down market? Well, there are a lot of signs, but in any case, you want to retain your clients. You want to retain and upsell your clients, and you want to retain your employees. The cost of replacing employees is significant. So we're gonna help people with that. You can sign up at landscapersummit.com. And for Simple Growth, Mike Callahan fans, you can save $20 on your ticket with the promo code Simple Growth. So landscapersummit.com, use promo code Simple Growth.
Awesome, Jack. Can't thank you enough. Looking excited to that. And anybody from the Simple Growth ecosystem watching this here, obviously, he's your trusted advisor. We do the automations. A lot of the services that Jack provides and we provide kind of overlap. But in the mindset of abundance, I think it's so important that we are exposed to this and many times as we can learn from it. Go check it out. It should be a killer event this Thursday. And Jack, what's the website they can once again reach out to you on for
Yeah,
that?
it's landscapersummit.com. So
Awesome.
landscapersummit.com. And yeah, it's Thursday the 26th. It's a virtual conference. You can bring your whole team for the price of one ticket. And we will have a contest for whoever brings the most people. We're going to have a prize. And I'm going to raffle away this hatchet, Mike. So I just got this sweet hatchet. So the reason is, so I wrote the book called The Tree of Good Fortune. And in it, there's what we call the Russian olive shrub of despair. Maybe you don't have these Russian olives out in New York, but here in Colorado, it's this noxious weed that sucks water away from other plants. And that's your current website. If you have a dinky website, it's not optimized, it's not showing up. That's the Russian olive. We're going to teach you how to plant your own tree of good fortune. And for one person, I will ship you a hatchet to chop down to chop down your Russian olive shrub of despair. So that's the deal. We have all kinds of fun prizes that we're shipping to people in the mail.
Love it. Love it. I've been on the road the last 7 or 10 days doing conferences. So do not ship that. I'm going to be sleeping lightly. I never know. My wife may pick that up from Amazon and we could be in trouble. So,
All
yeah,
right.
see me. I'm probably going to be the shed behind the house. But, anyways, looking forward to seeing you, Jack, on Thursday. Check it out, Landscaper Summit. And, Jack, for everything you do in the industry. And good luck for the person who wins the hatchet. So,
Yeah,
uh,
thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me here today.
all right, buddy.